I'm in a dilemma here. So just help me out. I want to build version 1 of an application, and I've been wanting to build it using domain driven design, which is an architectural pattern for building applications, right? Um, so the reason why I wanted to build it with that particular pattern was that I've been learning a lot about that and wanted to try it out. And wherever I read, I heard, I saw that it was more structural and it has more flexibility in terms of long-term maintainability and things like that. So the dilemma here is, if I want to implement all those things that I just mentioned with all the entities, value objects, repository pattern, and have everything implemented in the domain-driven design way, it will take some time for me to complete the project, right? Now, I could take another route, whereas choosing a pattern that is comfortable to me. So let's say if I choose an MVC pattern for implementing this, it will be much easier for me to complete the MVP and get the product out as quickly as I can, right? But the thing is, if I choose such a pattern, I'll be taking up the technical debt in the sense that the data could be mixed up. There'll be less separation within the repository itself, and it will give me less flexibility in the long term for the product to actually modify and grow with me. So this is an MVC pattern file structure that we normally would see. So you have the models, views, controllers, right? MP and C. So generally, models, what would they contain, right? They would contain the database related models, or the table columns and all those things would be inside that file. Views will have the HTML or the templating portion of the server side, where you can it will be basically the layer that you will see on the front end, and the controllers are where all the control logic resides here, right? So this is the basic what is MVC pattern that you would see here. Coming to the domain driven aspect, right? You have more structures present here. So we have two root folders, which are domain and application. By the way, this is just a very simplified example. There are a lot other things that would be needed here, but yeah. So there is domain and the application. Second is the application. So the domain slash entities would contain the core business objects with its rules. So let's say if there is a user entity, it will contain the getters and the setters, if the user is active or inactive, things of that sort. Okay. The repositories would contain mainly the interfaces. So interfaces to the persistence layer. So there would be another folder in this layer itself, let's say an infrastructure layer, that would contain the implementation to these repository functions. All those persistence methods are abstracted in the repositories folder here. Basically, services would be the core domain functions, which will be encapsulating all the business logic regarding that particular domain. And the errors would be like errors. And application layer would be what would be an orchestrated version of the domain service. So let's say if multiple services need to talk to each other and perform a function. So let's say in case of user, it's login, right? Login would require multiple pieces to work together. So in that case, the application layer would have an implementation to the domain. So those are the like different pieces within here that we would have to that would be, that we would have to consider while we are building domain driven design and implementing it into an application layer. Again, this is a very simplified example. There are a lot of things that we would have to do, not just this one. So those were the things I was thinking. So if I choose domain driven design, the data would be much cleaner because I'll be monitoring it to follow that pattern closely, and there will be much more flexibility in terms of the plug and play nature of the application. So let's say I want to orchestrate an application with a clear dependency injection and things like that. I'll have more flexibility if I choose domain-driven design than if I choose something like MVC. So that's the dilemma here of, okay, which one should I choose in terms of a startup that's building its V1, right? And I want to raise that question to you. What would you do?